Hello, in this video I would like to share my experience about component synthesis together with my Yamaha TX816. It is a synthesizer module having 8 TX7 synthesizers inside, and additionally I built my own controller for this device. With this controller I'm able to manipulate each parameter, each TX7 FM parameter in the synthesizer, and not only of one but also of all 8 modules at the same time. And not only to manipulate single parameters, this device is also able to work with a group or macros of several parameters at the same time. The first question is, what is component sound synthesis? In my definition, component sound synthesis is the composition of timbres using multiple voices, each with different aspects of the sound, from the same type of synthesizer, and they are operated concurrently. This type of synthesis is not found very often. Therefore, I will explain it a bit more here in this video. In the next sheet, have a look on these different shapes of component synthesis. The first one is you are using detune copies of the same sound program. Second shape is to have several layers of different sound programs at once. Third, you have a temporal sequence of sounds. And fourth, you are using spectral sound layers. The first possibility to using component synthesis is having detuned copies of the same sound programs. So possibly you have here, you can see you have 8 TX7 synthesizers at once. All of them are loaded with the same sound, like an e-piano, and you slightly detune them all against each other. The result is you have an instant and very mighty chorus effect. And yes, it sounds nice. However, I would say having a good chorus effect device, it's simpler to make and sounds nearly the same. Now coming to the second possibility, where you have layers of different sound programs. That means each of these modules are loaded with a different sound program. Then if you do that, it's easy to overload the total result if you just stack arbitrary sounds. In my experience, we cannot use more than 2 or 3 sounds together at the same time. Then you have a totally cluttered system or sound that is too heavy. That means you have to carefully select the sounds, and you have to differentiate the sounds into different functions. Let's say you have one module is just only caring for the noise transients, a starting transient. Another module possibly can care for tonal transient sounds at the beginning. Another one is just adding some noisy background, or another module is layering some body sounds or have multiple layers of body sounds. Possibly also another module having some slow attack sounds with some movements, and a last module making release sounds. This is an additive layering. That means you are carefully selecting sounds and you think about each function of each sound, which takes over a part of the total soundscape. And that means you have to consciously compose the sounds. And to do that, you need a good and maintained sound library. The next example is a temporal sequence of sounds. In this spectrogram, you see the time in the x-axis and the frequency of the sounds in the y-axis. Temporal sequence means you have several synthesizers playing after each other, or several sounds playing after the others, and each module gets a time frame allocated. This approach is similar to the synclavier you might know, or even a Korg's wave sequencing, where you can add several sound events after the other. Using the TX7, consider that the TX7 has no delay times in their envelope generators. You can have a workaround by manipulating the R1 attack times considerably, then you can have this result you want to have. You can also manipulate the modulation strengths between several synthesizer sounds. Let's say synthesizer 2 gets more modulation between operators, synthesizer 3 even more, and so on. So you have a changing soundscape between several time frames. You can also change the order of the direction. So you're starting the sound with synth 5 and going backwards in time. And finally, the last possibility is having spectral sound layers. Now in this spectrogram you see the synthesizer modules are divided into several frequency spectra or bands, and each module takes an isolated frequency spectrum. How can you do this with the FM synthesis? You can take a sound and manipulate the coarse frequencies of, let's say, the carrier operators. So you turn them down using lower values, then you are in the lower frequency spectrum. If you tune them higher, you can go on higher frequency spectrums. And you can separately manipulate the coarse frequencies of the carrier or the modulator operators, and you can then manipulate the sounds, moving them each module to separate layers of the sound and having nice results there. There is even more possible with component synthesis. Let's call it polyphonic slicing. That means each single node, each single MIDI node is assigned to several modules, and again, each module serves a different sound. This is kind of an Oberheim 8-voice style. Some of you might know it. You can use a round-robin method. So each new node is then assigned to a new synthesizer and going to round-robin. Another possibility is you can have a fixed assignment. So the first tone of a chord is always assigned to the first synthesizer, the second is assigned to the next synthesizer, and so on. So you have a fixed assignment.